Hi, everybody. And thank you all for staying and sticking around. I hope that we're not the last thing between you and a good drink. So, but I promise this will be exciting and engaging. And I think this is particularly interesting because I think for the last 2 days, really, we've been spending a lot of time around entertainment, properties, character-driven properties. And this is an opportunity to really do a deep dive into the world of corporate licensing. So, and we've got an esteemed group of panels here this afternoon who can really speak to this intimately. But let me first just sort of set the stage if you'll allow me. So in terms of corporate licensing, the global worldwide retail sales for licensing is a huge business, as we've been talking about the last 2 days. It's almost $263 billion US in retail sales, right? So it's a huge, huge business. So kudos to everybody in this room because you've made a smart decision to enter this industry because it is a lucrative industry and it's a smart industry to be in. Of that industry, 45% of it is coming from the character entertainment business. So that certainly is the lion's share of the revenue on a worldwide basis. But the important and interesting thing to note is number two in terms of where the revenue is coming from is corporate brand licensing. So equally, it's a lucrative area to go into in terms of driving significant revenue. Not at the level, it's about half the level of what character entertainment licensing is, but it's still a significant industry, significant part of the overall global licensing industry. And so I think you'll find it's extremely interesting and there's a lot of facets to it. What I think we should probably first do is really, if I can ask our panelists here to really talk about their respective businesses, because I think what you'll see throughout brand licensing is that while there is a definition of brand licensing, these are different iterations of brands and corporate brand licensing. So I'd first like to hand it over to Chris and have him talk a little bit about his brand and his franchise. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Okay, so I represent the brand that is the University of Oxford. And while you might think of that as a school, of course, it is also a nearly 900-year-old institution that has become famous around the world, both for the teaching and the accomplishments that have taken place there in Oxford, but also because of the way that we've touched the world. The activities of Oxford University Press with English language teaching have touched millions and millions of consumers, and they've learned English language as part of their education using curricula developed and sold by Oxford University Press. So we have a relationship with the world. Our reputation has built and spread, and we are able now to take our place as one of the very few institutes, university institutes, that can really truly say that they're a global organization. With that, of course, comes great responsibility, because what we cannot allow when we come to license that venerable brand is allow it to be damaged in any way. So the first watchword that we take is first, do no harm. Quite Hippocratic in that respect. But more than that, we take a philosophy that we need to ensure that the product that we license has a relevance, a story, something that links it back to this famous name. And over time, we have developed identity systems, brand positioning, and a variety of category focus that enables us to do just that, deliver relevance, and to make sure that the work that we do supports and even builds upon the reputation of the university. We operate globally. We have a network of licensing agents in all of the major continents, and we are very successful, looking to replicate that success with a good start here in India and more licenses to come.
Jason?
Well, yes, so I'm Jason Sutton. I'm the Vice President of Polaroid, and I think in terms of corporate licensing, Polaroid is really a very good example of what pure licensing can be. Everyone around the world knows our brand. We generally have around 90 to 100% brand awareness. We're getting close to $1 billion in licensed product sales on an annual basis, but we are pure licensing. Polaroid has not actually manufactured a product in about 10 years. We have 97 licensees around the world, and it's really about finding the selective partners. I think that the core of licensing in general is partnering with the right companies. And what we do is we look at what the brand stands for. We look at the different product categories that can benefit from the attributes, both on the DNA in terms of the core technological aspects of Polaroid, as well as some of the visual aspects that people associate with Polaroid. And we go, and basically I travel around the world and try to find people that really see the benefit to grow their business by utilizing our brand. What we look for in partners, and as I said, partners are really the most important thing, is we look for people that are experts within their industry. They're people that have been manufacturing a specific product and trying to make a move with their own brand. And obviously, building your own brand can be a bit of a struggle, and that's what licensing really brings to the table here. We're celebrating our 80th anniversary this year in September, and what we're looking at is that we spend billions and billions of dollars over the last 80 years building the brand to what it is. And by licensing the brand name, you're able to capitalize on all the last 80 years of history and everything that we've done and done on the marketing side, on the manufacturing side, and people recognize you as a brand in the marketplace. We look at strategic brand extensions, so they're things that have to be close to the core of the brand. With Polaroid, we're an imaging-based company, we're a consumer electronics company, so we really capitalize on doing things like flat-screen TVs, cameras, mobile phones. We have a three-screen strategy, so you look at mobile phones, you look at TVs, and you look at cameras. We have a new partner here in India, actually. They're doing flat-screen televisions, which you can find on Amazon, and really my goal for being here and speaking to everyone today is to find some new amazing partners to help to grow the brand within this fantastic growing economy in India.
Perfect. Hand off to Anuj.
Thank you, Maura. It's good to be here. One of the first times that Swiss military is actually coming to a licensing show. So I've been with the brand for about 20 years. I'm the managing director worldwide. So I'll give you my first instance with the Swiss people, which is basically what defines what Swiss military is. So remember I was fresh out of my MBA school and I wanted to meet the principals as sourcing manager for the brand. So my father had an association with them. So the first time I went there and I was waiting for about 15 minutes in the lobby and the Swiss principals didn't call me inside. So being Indian, I just walked in presuming that I'm supposed to be inside the room. So he's looking downstairs and he just calls me to him and I just walk up to him and I'm, hello Mr. Jean-Luc, my name is Anuj, and he says, look down. So I saw down and there's my car parked in the parking lot with the tire turned on the side, and he said it's not parked fine. I said it's absolutely fine. So he takes me down 6 stairs. We walk down for 10 minutes and then he comes back saying the car is straight but the tire is turned on the side and it's touching the curb. So I said it doesn't matter, it's still straight. He said it doesn't, which is what basically defines the Swiss. So whatever they do is perfect, which is why Swiss precision, Swiss timing, Swiss watches are so well renowned, and that is why that is what the Swiss stands for. Now what we did for the brand is basically 3 things, which is now made Swiss military being categorized as the fastest growing and the most exciting brand in the world. So we are practically a one-stop shop. Now we realize the fact that most of the brands do huge ATL spends. So for example, you buy a beverage, it costs about 3% of the cost of the product in the beverage, about 5% is in the packaging, and the 70% of the cost being paid by people is the ATL spends done on the brand. So if you have a beverage which costs about 17 rupees MRP and you offer it to somebody for $5, and you say, what if you're not advertised, would you still enjoy the beverage? The answer is simple. That yes, he would love to have the same beverage for $5 as opposed to 17 rupees for which he's not getting any value for the product he's spending the money on. Second thing was we went for affordable luxury. So we aim for the best product in the world. We give in so much in the product, we price it at almost 1/5 or 1/6 that of the competition. Therefore, the perceived value of the product is much higher than the MRP on the value charged from the customer. And the third factor is that most brands, when they sell a product, they would write to a customer saying, what is it that you want? Suggestions, feedbacks, complaints. We go a step ahead. We also write to the customer saying, what is it that you want that does not exist? And therefore, we have about 2.6 million people in our customer databases who write to us and who tell us that this is an innovation they want, this is something that no brand is looking at, what we as a brand call a demand vacuum, is what we working for. So what the concept of pharmas is R&D. We do a lot of R&D. We have almost 600 people across the globe doing our research, where we're innovating products, something as generic as a leather wallet, something as generic as a Bluetooth speaker. We try and give in 6, 7 different multi-utility features, which catapults us to what we are today. So we are at $4.2 billion. We're in 26 countries. We have almost 18,000 products across 18 different product profiles. The Indian market is a new market for us. We've been here only 4.5 years. And it's a virgin market as far as corporate licensing is concerned. At the same time, it's a great time for brands because of the advent of the new GST rules that have come in. It is a great time where, because of the unbranded market really now going out the window, because the landed cost for a product, for a brand vis-a-vis a non-branded product at the same quality level is going to be exactly the same. Which means now everybody, including the SMEs making the non-branded product now in India, will be going in towards a brand, especially towards a brand that is affordable and it's for the masses. And I think it's a great time for us to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Roberto?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Marie Claire is simple to be introduced. It's like this. It looks like a magazine. Looks like a magazine. So Marie Claire was born in 1947 as a feminine magazine, iconic. From the beginning, monthly magazine, so which today could be a big issue. We will talk eventually later. Dedicated, committed to women from the beginning. Today, I would say 35 edition, 17 languages, but I would say more than 50 million reader monthly, 87 million influencer women addicted to the magazine. So this shows something. When I came in, it happened about 7 years ago. We joined venture together with Marie Claire in Paris to reconsider the business model, basically. Monthly magazine, printed magazine, big issues, big issues, together with competing with internet, competing with new competitors on the web, competing with new influencer on the web, competing with bloggers. It is needed to reconsider the business model. This is when I came in. And of course, licensing that was already existing at Marie Claire since 1980, basically, was just simply generating extra incomes. Not bad. But today, we are at the licensing conference. Rethinking licensing is a whole process. So this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm trying to get also for Indian market, because it's a whole process. We still have the confidence to be content creator. Now we're looking for partner, not just to brand product, but just to create local communities on the top of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I told you they were good. The interesting thing is, so we're really here with 4 what I call legacy brands. And so sitting in the audience, you might be thinking, okay, well, they have this history. They have established consumer base. They have awareness. So I'll ask you guys if you could sort of take a step back and think about how you really would start something with a brand that doesn't have necessarily the kind of legacy and recognition that each of your respective brands already enjoy. So for folks in the audience who may have a corporate brand that is core in its and successful in its core business, it could be, I don't know, say for example, Windows. In the States, Anderson Windows, for example, or Premier Windows. And, so how do you take that and extend it, and how do you make that into a bigger brand? So if you could sort of put on your hats and remember and look back to what it was to really start the businesses that you've been so successful at over the years, I think that would be useful for some of the folks in the audience. And if anyone wants to jump in first, or we can just, yeah.
Okay, so really what it comes down to it, and to Maura's point, we are all heritage brands here. We are all brands that have been in business for 50 years plus. You know, so that obviously you have the awareness, but really what it really comes down to in terms of corporate licensing in general is looking at the DNA of the brand and what your brand really stands for. You know, in the window example, you know, you're looking at other things that not necessarily are glass, but it can be, you know, your vision into the future. It can be, you know, you're basically looking at the attributes, both emotional and core. So with Polaroid, it's pretty simple. You know, we're imaging, so anything that's imaging related, you know, whether it's camera related, whether it's mobile apps that have a camera feature, those are the ones that are somewhat no-brainers that you can run out and they're easy to do. But then when you look at the real core of the brand and the things that actually people get excited about, there's a million different opportunities that you can really look at. Whether it's the visual aspects of the brand, you know, with Polaroid, we have the Pixel logo, and it's basically the Pantone logo, and that gives us the ability to go into things like headphones that have bright colors. You know, I have 19 different apparel licensees. When you think of it, it's a corporate brand. It's a consumer electronics and camera brand, but we're able to sell things like T-shirts for $120 in Tokyo because people have this emotional attachment to it. So whatever your brand is, you have to look at your customer base. You have to look at what the brand really stands for, and not what it stands for in the marketplace, but what it could mean to the individual person. You know, when the person is home with your brand. Brands are very inspirational. You know, when you come down to it, you buy a brand because you care about it. When you go to the shelf, you're either deciding on the product because of the price or because of the brand. You know, ultimately, that's really what it comes down to. And the price fighting it's a losing game. You know, whenever I talk about the price fighting game, it's basically if you look at two gas stations or petrol stations that are on opposite sides of the street. They're offering the same product. You know, same thing as a coffee shop. They're offering the same product. And the only way that you can win is either by marketing and making your brand sound more appealing, or lowering your price every week. And the gas station on the right side of the street lowers their price by 10 rupees. The one across the street lowers theirs by 20 rupees. And the next week it's down by 30. And the next week it's down by 40. So, you know, so what licensing is, it's really about brand building and seeing the attributes that people will associate with and that they be proud to carry your products.
I'll add on to what Jason just said. You know, one more thing which really is extremely critical in licensing, which we've seen over the years, is the fact that there has to be a marriage between the licensor and the licensee. Having said that, for the audience coming into a store buying a Mary Claire vis-a-vis a Polaroid, vis-a-vis a Swiss military, is buying the brand. He doesn't care if it's a licensing operation, which is done by somebody else who's a manufacturer, if it's done by the brand itself. So the core brand ethics, like Jason just said, for example, in Swiss military, it is affordable luxury, it's innovation, it has to be different, it has to be something which is, much higher perceived value, like I said before. So then that has to really spell out in the kind of product that the customer is buying through a licensing operation. At the same time, it is something which has to have the brand DNA in place. So for example, like we are the only brand in the world that doesn't have a separate line for corporate licensing, a separate line for corporates and a separate line for retail. Because we really believe in the word of mouth. So if somebody is purchasing a product, even if it's for a free corporate gift, he's experiencing a Swiss military wallet, which has been given to him for free. So either he's going to buy the wallet, he's going to say it's a great wallet, I would love to buy a pen from a store, from the same brand, or he's saying it's trash, it kind of tore apart in the next 2 months, I will never propagate the brand again. So therefore it's extremely important for the value proposition to be absolutely clear, communicated to the customer, and as a marriage between the licensor and the licensee to be absolutely crystal clear.
I think an example that I often cite in the States is coffee, right? So Starbucks, which is ubiquitous these days. But you will find what I call there's Team Starbucks and there's Team Dunkin' Donuts. And folks are very, very emotional about their attachment to either of those brands. And it's in very much a definition or almost an analysis of who they are. Depending on whether they're Starbucks or whether they're Dunkin' Donuts. And it's defining, almost as a lifestyle, really, the kind of choices that we make. And that's certainly the purpose of a brand is to help cut through and help people make decisions, but often those decisions are a reflection on who they are individually. So that's a part of it. One of the things that I think, again, sort of understanding how we go about really developing corporate brands is this idea of really getting into the DNA of the brand and what it stands for, and sort of understanding the time frame of what it takes, the investment to really develop an understanding of your brand DNA, and in some cases develop that brand DNA. So how much time do you guys spend on brand DNA and identifying brand attributes and articulating that so that you're able then to start to even begin to think about how you want to expand and develop line extensions for your brand?
Okay, well, the answer is as long as it takes. And you absolutely cannot skip that. That is the fundamental magic that you are trying to capture. Because if you don't do your brand DNA work properly, if you don't understand what your equity is, you don't understand why your brand differentiates itself from all of the others in the marketplace, then you can't do any of the follow-on steps. You can't decide which categories you're going to seek to move to in terms of adjacent steps. You can't decide what you're going to say to your customer or the licensee's customer in terms of why your product is better, different, or special. So DNA, thinking about what you have in your hand, how to express that so that not only you understand it, but a total stranger who walks into the room can have it explained to them in 10 seconds. That is the magic. That's where it happens. And you just cannot skip that step.
You know, Chris, on the other side, so it's strange that you say that, you know, you have to spend as much time as you want, because when it comes to the Swiss, it's something which is a subconscious level of, you know, brand consciousness. So if it's inspired by innovation, everything from literally the office to the way the displays come out, to the packaging, to the product itself, would be in the DNA. So even if somebody is trying to do something which is opposing the basic, how do you say, the brand personality of let's say, Swiss military, it just stands out like a sore eye. So we don't spend any time on defining who we are. We've just been told this is exactly the bloodstream, the DNA that you're supposed to be having. Which is why sometimes it's strange. You see, let's say a brand like Nike, and you have a licensee looking for bed sheets. Like, really? You just do it for a bed sheet? It just doesn't go together. So it's very important, like I said before, for the brand extension to be extending to a category which makes sense for the DNA to be extended into.
No, you're quite right. I think in your particular example, you're talking about culture. So your brand DNA is built into the culture of your organization. That's a very rare thing. And when that happens, it becomes an awful lot easier to express yourself to the world. Don't forget, however, that all of those people who've never met your brand needs to be able to understand it. So you're very clear, but it's the rest of the world.
First question, when related to Marie Claire, first question is, who is the woman, Marie Claire? This is the first question that a licensee might ask you. Eventually, a master licensee need to know who's the woman, Marie Claire. I would either ask you, who's the man, who's the woman, University of Oxford. I mean, it's not that simple as a question, but it's crucial somehow. On the other hand, we have been through consulting to define the woman. Okay, then the woman of Marie Claire is inside this content, because content is creativity. Content at Marie Claire is real what the DNA of the brand is today. I must say that coming here, often the question is not very clearly explained, because when you face with women worldwide, well, I would bring a motto that comes from our publisher. Marie Claire means think smart and look amazing. Okay, does it mean anything in India? Is that enough to explain the DNA of the brand? Well, sometimes it's not. So this is a crucial question, by the way. So you need to build it somehow, and I believe you need to build it locally whenever you travel from Europe, US, Asia, Middle East, Far East, is not the same sensitivity.
Brought to you by BCCL.
Party. So, in a few words, the crucial point is, of course, you keep your DNA as a value of the brand. But to answer to the question, who you represent in terms of femininity in my case, it becomes very often local. Very, very often it has to be local.
Okay. I'll just add a really quick part. We're talking about all the very, very positive things about your DNA. I'll add the negative side of it. The fastest way to kill a licensing program is by doing a category that is not on brand, is not in your DNA. I've seen it over and over and over for years, where they have an amazing program and they come out with a product that just doesn't fit at all, and the program is dead within the next year.
And as a consumer, it doesn't feel right. It's as you mentioned, Anuj, the Nike sheets, it doesn't feel right. So I think that is so important to really understand and spend time. But again, taking it back even a step further. So what does that analysis look like? What does that really take? Is it a brainstorming session that you have, and is it something that you do on a regular basis, or is it an offsite for a day? Who do you convene to really help in this process of really getting at the core of what your brand represents? Because I think, again, going back to folks who may just have a brand that's very successful in a core category, they're trying to figure out, how do I get to understand what my core attributes are, or my DNA, or my value proposition is? How do they even start?
In our case, for example, and I think it happens in the case of most brands, it's a timeline that happens. So in the inception of the brand, I think the DNA is different. So for us, it started as a one-stop shop for the tourists in Switzerland. So therefore, we were at 600 stores at every mom and pop store, tourist shop, gift shop. So it had to be very affordable. So affordable luxury came as a requirement from the present market that we had in, and it became a DNA. Then finally, there were so many competitors in that space that we said that let's try and do something different. So therefore, slowly with time, over the next 10 years, the innovation factor came and became a very strong factor that we were working towards. So I think for any brand, it's the timeline, it's the circumstances, it's actually the customer that defines what really you would want to be. Like you said, in different markets, a Mary Claire woman in India vis-a-vis a French market would be very different in the DNA, in the customer's point of view of looking at a brand in a certain vision. All in all, the basic mindset is the same. But when you talk about the differential factors, time plays a very, very strong essence in the same thing. And it's up to a brand to try and innovate, at the same time change with the changing marketing trends that you're in.
Okay, yeah, to pick on what Anuj says, fundamentally, you put the customer first. You understand what the customer gives you permission for. But this process is at the risk of sounding corporate for a second, it's a 360-degree process. You do not make a brand by just asking what the customer thinks of you. You need to understand about what are your strengths. So you need to talk to your fellow staff members, your stakeholders, your shareholders. You need to understand what has made you differentiate in the market already. What magic have you already created that you can package up? And when it comes to talking to your customer, of course, these days, you don't need to spend $50,000 on a market research agency to go out and do a comprehensive study that takes 6 months and tells you not much that you didn't already know. Because you've got social media in your hand, and you're in touch with your customers. You can ask them. You can use any number of innovative ways of reaching out to your customer and asking them what they think of you. What do you mean to them? So in this modern world that we live in, gathering the data that together makes a big picture that leads you to your DNA is the way forward, is the way to do it.
So if you're talking in terms of how often and how we do it, at Polaroid, we do annually, quarterly, monthly, and daily. Our annual is that we actually do go and pay the money for the market research, and to your point, you're usually hearing what you already know. On a quarterly basis, we meet as a strategic internal team, and we look at what the brand stands for and how it may have changed from the previous quarter. On a monthly basis, to Chris's point, we use the social media, and we have an internal person as well as an outside agency that analyzes the people that are coming back and commenting on Polaroid and what Polaroid means. And on a daily basis, I'm a big believer in, I call it PMR, it's personal market research. And every time that we have a new product concept or a new idea, it's talking to your family, it's talking to your friends, it's talking to your significant other. It's really just going and talking to the individual consumer that you have on a personal basis that can tell you whether they think it's crazy that your brand would be in that category or whether it actually makes sense.
Just been given a message that we've got to start to wrap it up. But I have another question that I'd like, before I put it out to questions to the audience, which is really, you know, again, you've got a successful core business and that's humming along. So why go into brand extensions? Why really build out your business into all these other categories? What is the value there, both from a revenue opportunity as well as from a marketing opportunity? Why go to all of this and not just sort of sit tight and enjoy the business in your core category?
As I said briefly at the first beginning, derivative product was a matter to generate extra money. It was very simple. I'm talking about 1980, 1990. It was very simple. It came automatically. Today, the main concern is to move from a monthly magazine to a daily commitment to clients. So now, branding product for Marie Claire is not enough. Branding product has a limit. Now is a matter of being committed with the community, being on a daily exchange and currency with the community. This is why product will help. This is why content will help, but in a reverse way. And at the end of the story, as was said before, people and community will come back to read the magazine at the end of the cycle. So this is my vision, let's say.
I mean, from Polaroid's perspective, honestly, we're a pure license brand, so we are licensing in general, but I've worked with a lot of brands over the years, and what it really comes down to for corporate licensing is you have your core product and you have your manufacturing facilities, you have your teams that are devoted to it, but there's a lot of other product categories that your name can be meaningful in. And do you want to start a whole other division? Do you want to employ all those people in order to try to start manufacturing it? Or do you want to go out there into marketplace with someone who's already established that you can partner with that will take your brand and be able to be very successful in it?
And I think a lot of synergies come in. So if your core product is, for example, a certain product category, and you can't have a core in about 10 other product profiles. So for example, we just signed up with Firefox and Hero Cycles in India to make bicycles. So for us, it's a category which is very alien to us. It's obviously an extension to what we are. It's adventure, it's sporty, it's outdoor, it's masculine, it's suited the brand profile. And then for us, the synergy comes in with the visibility that licensee will give to you, with the kind of ATL and BTL budgets they would have, the social media propagation of the brand that they would bring on board. And therefore, a customer experiencing a franchisee or a licensee owned store, a company owned store, at the same time, the visibility happening on all different levels brings about the synergy where the brand recall becomes more and more valid.
Yeah, and for me, I work for a university and we don't have any of those things. We don't make core product. But what we do is compete for talent. Talent at both the student level. We need the best and the brightest from around the world to come and want to study at Oxford. And we also need to attract the best and the brightest teachers, the academics. We are in something of an arms race with Harvard, Yale, some other places. I haven't. So what we want to use brand licensing for is to project our brand and dispel any misconceptions about a 900-year-old brand stuck in the past. This is a modern, contemporary, cutting-edge university, and we use brand licensing to communicate that, to celebrate our heritage, certainly, but also make us relevant to the modern world. There is one other objective that we use, which is trademark protection. The University of Oxford has a very famous reputation, and given left to its own devices, there would be no shortage of charlatans creating Oxford University product and seeking to make a quick buck from it. We need to protect that, we need to stop that, because stuff done in our name damages us. So the trademark program is driven by licensing. It enables us to continue to both fund it, but also, in many cases, we need to demonstrate use of a trademark in order to be able to protect and renew it. And licensing is a great way to do that.
Terrific, thank you. So from both a strict revenue perspective as well as marketing, as well as brand protection, IP protection, it really, that's really what's driving the decisions around corporate brand licensing. I'd like to now put it out to the audience. We have a few minutes, a few seconds actually, but I'll stretch a little bit and we'll ask some good questions. Any questions from the audience? Oh. Here's a tough question now. Uh-oh, we're in for it.
Good afternoon, and my name is Pete Canalicchio. First off, excellent job, guys. Really well articulated the vision for your brands, and I think it was very helpful. And Maura, excellent job in hosting this. My question is, as I think about brand expansion, brand extension, brand licensing, and what you're doing, I know this is probably true, but I didn't hear you speak about it. In the interviews that I've done, in some research on a book I'm writing, they talked about the idea of creating a brand universe, putting the consumer at the center of the brand, and then building an environment where the consumer fan can come in, go out, on-ramp, off-ramp, that sort of thing. I know that this is something you're probably thinking about. Can each of you touch on that, how you're creating that universe for your particular consumer? Thank you.
I mean, to Chris's point earlier about social media, I think in the world that we're living in today, that's really your first step. That's really how you interact with your consumer base. That's how you understand whether you're doing a good job or a bad job. You know, you can get the market research reports and you can evaluate them all day, but it's really on the personal messages that you see for your consumer. You know, we struggle really at a big level within Polaroid, honestly, to make sure that we are in touch with our consumer, whether it's doing not necessarily sponsorships, but doing consumer engagement events, whether it's a social media, and we operate on multiple different platforms, whether it's gifting options and contests and things like that. And we want to make sure that our consumer is very active with the brand and that they're out there and looking for the next products that we're coming out with.
You know, even to answer a question about the universe, I think it's on a lot of levels that you have to even convince the consumer, because the consumer today is bombarded with so many different brands trying to sell their products for the same kind of value proposition. And the consumer is extremely aware. You know, the social media has a flip side where there's so much information coming in, there are so many people trying to influence the same kind of consumer that you really need to convince them and be truthful to yourself. For example, if we talk about innovation, if it's an advertisement going out, the consumer's really saying that if it's an innovation, what difference has the brand brought about in the ad they've given? If it's the kind of store you have, if it's the kind of packaging that you have, every level you're being scrutinized in the subconscious level of a consumer. And unless you're true to yourself and true to the brand, you cannot create a universe where you're talking about social media communication, you're talking about the posters, you're talking about the store itself, where the brand perspective, the brand DNA, what the USP of the brand is coming out very clearly to the consumer. At any given point, he feels cheated and he's out of the game. So to create that, like Chris was saying earlier, it is a very multi-pronged approach, from social media to the product itself to the research about what is it that would tick with the consumer, and you can always go wrong as a brand. You know, it's not that easy ever, and you make mistakes, but the point is to learn from them and make sure that the same the value principles that you hold come across.
If you don't mind, just briefly, from my point of view, Marie Claire as a magazine always needs a voice. Normally, I would say voices, iconic voices, are either beauty or fashion or interior editors. These are what I call voices. So voices they used to address their voice, their advice to readers. Now we need to move from readers to community. But basically, we have all the ingredients already.
Yep, and then finally to finish off, I think to the point of universe, what I conceive by that is a consistent experience no matter how you touch and engage with the brand. And of course that's driven by that first step, the thinking about what you are, what your brand equity is, what the DNA looks like. And then you build that into every experience that a customer or consumer or a potential consumer might have with your brand. By that first step, the thinking about what you are, what your brand equity is, what the DNA looks like. And then you build that into every experience that a customer or consumer or a potential consumer might have with your brand to deliver a consistent, true experience. And then that's how you build.
Any other questions? I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much, all of you guys. It was fantastic. As I said, you've got really A-class here in terms of corporate brand management, and we learn from the best. So please feel free to reach out to them and follow up with some questions you may have individually. But really, this is a terrific opportunity, I think, to share some insights in the world of corporate brand licensing. So thank you so much, and thank you for participating in this. We really appreciate it. Look forward to speaking with you.
Thank you very much, Maura, and thank you very much to all our panel members. Can we have a round of applause to thank them as well? And I'm going to request Ms. Maura to please present the mementos to fellow panel members as well. I'm going to request you to do the honors of presenting the mementos. Firstly, to Mr. Roberto Bray. Mr. Chris Evans. To Mr. Jason. And the bags, yes. And to Mr. Anuj, yes. I'm also going to request all of you to come together for a group photograph as well. All the panel members, along with Ms. Maura, I'm going to request you to come together for a group photograph. One with Mr. Roberto. All right. So our photographer wants an individual photo with Mr. Roberto, and then we'll do the group photo as well. Now we'll have the group photo as well. All the panel members, everyone together.